Alright, that was an experience. So moving on to Marble Zone Act 2, it's kind of more the same, kind of more platforming focused. Again, I actually want to collect 50 rings because in the first 2 acts, you can access the special stages, and I actually would like to get all the emeralds. As a kid, I was never able to get all the emeralds because, frankly, trying to get to the end of each stage with 50 rings was a tall order when I was like 8. Also, the shield did not activate until I took damage, unfortunately, so that kind of sucked. One nice thing in Origins is you can actually restart the stage, and also you don't have to worry about lives. So it's actually pretty easy to get all the emeralds. I'm not going to, like, restart stages. I'm going to try to play the game straight through. But I would like to get the emeralds as soon as possible, because as the game progresses, obviously as it gets more difficult, getting to the end of each stage with enough rings gets increasingly difficult, to the point of being kind of impossible in some stages, if you ask me. Like, it is technically possible, but at my skill level, it's a tall order. So yeah, the developers of the mobile ports also worked on 2 more mobile re-releases, Sonic CD and Sonic 2. Sonic CD was actually the only one released on consoles originally, for PS3 and 360, and also Steam eventually. But they also went on to work on Sonic Mania. So it's kind of an interesting development cycle, going from making a proof of concept of Sonic on GBA to actually making an official mobile release of Sonic GBA, and then working on Mania in the case of Stealth. And Taxman also has worked on quite a few very prolific Sonic fan projects as well. So yeah, very solid reputations there. So the mobile versions of Sonic 1, 2, and CD are often considered the best in many ways. There are some slight hiccups. It's more noticeable in Sonic 2 than Sonic 1, mostly because of the collision in terms of being crushed by things. There isn't as much of a risk of being crushed in this game, but it's a bit of a problem in Sonic 2, and yeah, like Chemical Plant is a lot tougher because of the different crushing physics in the mobile versions, but in general it's not too bad. I've actually never played the mobile versions that much because they're mobile versions, and also they are free to play, but they're like, you have to pay a few dollars to get rid of ads. So I would usually just boot up like Green Hill just to see what it was like, and I did not like playing a game on a phone like this where you need a lot of precision. So I'm definitely glad to have the Retro Engine versions on console. So yeah, these were made with the Retro Engine, which was a custom engine made by Christian Whitehead for the purpose of, like, you know, trying to recreate all the Sonic games. And yeah, never actually released Sonic 3, but that's a story for another time. We'll definitely get to that later. By the way, Sonic Origins does have a mode where you can actually play through all 4 games on the collection in one go, but we are actually playing the games individually, for the sake of, like, basically spreading out each game across a few months. So, Chaos Emerald number 4 is my least favorite. I got extremely walled on this yesterday when I was playing the game for the first time. Chaos Emerald retrieval unsuccessful. Do you want to spend coins to retry? So one of the main uses of the coins that we've been finding is they let you retry special stages, which is actually really nice in the case of this, because otherwise you'd actually have to just get 50 rings and enter a special ring again, which is not great. Again, we're running out of easy options to actually get to the end of stages with enough rings, so I would really prefer to get all the emeralds within the first 3 possible acts that we can get them in. If we have to get them in later stages, we will have a bad time. So yeah, I do like the ability to retry. Coins also have other uses, but we'll talk about that at another time, maybe in a different video. I might also do a one-off video. It actually might release before this one, most likely. But I would like to talk about the collection as a whole, because there are some choices made in the collection that I want to highlight separately from the individual games. If I can actually get this second try, I'll be impressed with how much of an ordeal this was yesterday, but a lot can still go wrong. And moving on to Marble Zone Act 3, we can actually take a break from worrying about rings, which is actually the nice thing about Act 3s. But yeah, the collection is very interesting, but again, most likely before this video goes live, the day before, there'll be a separate video talking about the collection as a whole. But yeah, over the next few months, I do want to gradually work through each game. Again, that is part of the reason why I did not choose story mode, because otherwise I'd be playing all the games in succession, and as much as I do like classic Sonic, I almost feel like that's a little too much, playing 4 games in a row, especially because of how dodgy some of the games are. So Sonic 1, I'm going to be blunt, was never one of my favorites. I don't dislike Sonic 1, I may regret saying that out loud, to be honest. But I definitely would prefer to play almost every other 2D Sonic game over Sonic 1, with 2 exceptions. And if you've been around the Sonic community long enough, you know exactly what those 2 exceptions probably are. So yeah, again, recently, like a while back, I actually did go through most of the recent 3D Sonic games. The only ones I have left are Forces and Lost World, which, to put it nicely, aren't exactly high on my list of games to get through, but eventually I might try to go back to those. But again, I think at the end of the Generations playthrough, I talked about wanting to go through the classic games instead, take a break from 3D. So yeah, I basically waited a year because for the 30th anniversary, this collection, Sonic Origins, was announced, but it wasn't ready until the following anniversary, which is the 31st. Again, this is actually being played the day of release, so also I should mention that some of the things I talk about, like, you know, special stage physics, feeling a little bit off, that is subject to change, because who knows, they may patch things. So, full disclosure, yeah, this is the basic launch, essentially the launch version of the game. There is an update, it's at version 1.1.0 on Switch. So yeah, technically it has received one update, but in general, it still has a few things that I hope are resolved. So this Robotnik fight, he basically goes back and forth, dropping fire. We have to dodge the fire and deal damage. Tails can kind of break the fight because his actual flying with his tails can actually deal damage. Also, by the way, the story mode can only be played with Sonic, not with the other characters. Marble Zone is kind of a pace breaker, but it's actually followed up by a pretty alright act. Spring Yard Zone is pretty good. I definitely think it's a little bit weaker than Green Hill. It definitely has some level decisions that I do not agree with in terms of like cheap shots, and that's kind of a problem with Sonic in general, is cheap shots. It might not be super obvious yet, but it will definitely be obvious later on. I'll say that much. One issue I've actually seen, and I haven't, well, that sucks. One issue I've actually seen mentioned online, but I haven't really noticed myself. I was actually trying to listen to it for a little bit. But apparently the special music, or the speed-up music when getting the speed shoes item, might be a little bit glitched in this collection, where it doesn't end when it should. Like, it keeps playing a little bit longer than it should. And there are some other musical issues in the game, but again, we'll go over those when we get to the corresponding game, because as is, Sonic 1 is actually pretty alright. As far as the games on this collection go, this one's actually pretty okay. Like, having done 2 playthroughs already, and currently working on my 3rd playthrough for this Let's Play, it seems mostly stable. I haven't noticed any major, like, huge problems. Again, occasional, like, quirks with the physics, but beyond that, it's pretty okay. I haven't actually played 2 through the collection, or CD. CD, it's not exactly high on my list, but chronologically, according to this game, CD is actually next. In release order, 2 is the next game, but CD actually makes a lot of sense to put it between games. But again, we'll talk more about that at a later time. I'm actually going out of my way for rings, because I'm kind of pushing it in terms of actually having enough rings to get the special stage. So yeah, I'm kind of going out of my way to ensure that we have enough. I'm trying to figure out what to do with this enemy. I think I'll just avoid it for now. I think you can actually roll to defeat it, but I kind of don't want to take that chance. I need the rings, but this is kind of risky. We're actually almost to the end of the stage, so we barely have enough rings. I think this might be the end of the stage. I don't think we're actually supposed to be able to do that as Sonic, like making that jump, but with Tails we can through flight. Again, I'm trying to not overuse Tails' flight, or even the spin dash, because the spin dash wasn't even in Sonic 1. But again, for some situations I am actually choosing to use these abilities. By comparison, I want to say Special Stage 5 is actually not as bad. By the way, it's disabled by default, but if you use the traditional Sonic level select, which is up, down, left, right, and then press Y on Switch, X on Xbox, or Square on PlayStation, you can actually access like special settings and enable a 7th Chaos Emerald. I'm actually not going to go for that because I didn't want to tinker through the settings, to be honest. And even though we are playing as Tails, this is kind of like a more true to the original experience. There is a classic mode, by the way, which is 4x3 and doesn't have the drop dash, but actually still has the spin dash for some reason, so it's not a true classic mode. Well, this is a predicament. I don't like these bumpers here. I tend to clip them constantly and get sent back. Alright, playing with fire a little bit here, so I'm actually going to wait for this. I don't want it to be rotating this way, but it is, so we'll try to make the best of it. That is actually much better. So yeah, Sonic 1 special stages are definitely an experience, and it's actually nice to actually be able to finish them this time. I apparently cannot actually get through that gap. So the good news is we only have 1 Chaos Emerald to go, and we actually have a lot of chances left. So this is actually promising. Even if we botch this stage, we still have another chance. And by another chance, I mean like 6. But the downside is the remaining levels are so difficult. I am very curious to see how many of them I'll get through with any rings, basically. Like, more than like 10. Because as the game goes on, it definitely gets a little bit annoying trying to hold on to rings. By the way, I almost feel like some of this doesn't need explaining because Sonic has been around so long, but for the sake of this playthrough, assuming that someone is watching this and maybe not familiar with Sonic, rings basically act as health. I was afraid of being crushed because this game's crushing physics are weird. Again, that's kind of a quirk of the retro engine that these mobile versions were built on. Sometimes you can get crushed by things and then think, why did that work? And again, normally it's not bad in Sonic 1, it gets worse in Sonic 2. I'm not even talking as someone who's played Sonic 2 Mobile or Origins. I'm talking as someone who's played Mania and definitely gotten crushed unfairly in Chemical Plant. But again, more on that later. I don't know how frequently I'll post these, because again, I would like to space out each game a little bit to avoid like oversaturation and sort of highlight other games along the way. But yeah, over the next year, I'd say I would like to get through all of the games on this collection. And who knows, maybe by the time I'm frankly trying to give some games a little bit of extra time for a patch. Sonic 1 is relatively okay, and from what I gather, CD is pretty okay too. 2 is fine, and it's mostly just 3 and Knuckles that there are some concerns. So I'm hoping by the time I get to 3 and Knuckles, it'll be in a little bit better shape. It's still more than playable now. Again, there'll probably be a standalone video where I talk more about the collection itself instead of the individual games. But I will admit, I have actually enjoyed this collection so far. And the final special stage is really weird. The emerald's literally, you're literally dropped right where the emerald is. It's surrounded by a million of these crystals, so it is easier said than done, as is the case with a lot of these special stages, actually. Yeah, it's actually a very basic final layout. So it's a little bit anticlimactic. I can't complain too much as someone who doesn't like these, though.